Hi, I'm Emma, she, her.
And I'm Jess, she, her.
And this is Fluff,
the podcast about friendship, love, unfortunate failure, and fun.
Hello?
Hello?
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Is that Emma?
Yeah, it's me. Is that Jess?
Yeah!
Oh, thank goodness.
I haven't heard your voice in 1 second. I forgot what it sounded like.
I know, it's feeling a bit lonely.
Did you go to drama school?
No. Why'd you ask?
So, podcast listeners, today we are talking about loneliness. Interchangeable with a little bit of exploration of isolation.
Yeah.
Because loneliness is the emotional state of feeling alone, but it could mean that you actually are surrounded by people, you are still active and out and about, whereas isolation and social isolation is the physical state of being by yourself, whether by society has made you isolated and you can't access society, or you are self-isolating. Oh my God, that term sounds so different now.
Oh, yeah, it brings up a little bit of trauma to talk about that at the moment.
Yeah, because we're recording at COVID-19 right now.
Yeah.
So self-isolating is something we have to do, but some people do that in line with mental health as well.
So obviously isolation is a big term at the moment, and it seems quite important to be addressing this topic during COVID-19. But actually all of our stories that we're going to share today are not from during this period.
Yeah, absolutely. And Emma and I are coming from different perspectives as well, which is really helpful, and we like to provide a plethora for our listeners to hopefully make...
Listeners, is it plethora or plethora?
Oh, I do like the triple of the tongue of the plethora. That feels nice.
I like, it's a bit more like plethora. It's like your aura, your plethora.
So you prefer my way of saying it and I prefer yours.
Yeah, but I'd like to know which is correct, so if you could let us know.
Emma needs the actual definition, whereas I'm going to make up a whole new word for it anyway. I'm like plethora. Plethora.
What do we have a plethora of? Sorry, I cut you off.
Oh yeah, a plethora of listeners who may identify more with Emma, more identify with my feelings. So I think that's quite nice. And then we can, provide compassion for the person. Are you looking at my tits or?
No, I'm looking at your necklace. Is that connected or is that sun cream?
It's got sun cream on it.
You've got sun cream in the U of your fluff.
Oh, it's connecting it. It's making
bringing the U together.
It doesn't want the two sides.
You together.
Bringing you together.
Oh, clever.
So we don't want the other sides the two sides of the U to feel lonely from each other. and that is quite symbolic because I'm coming from the perspective of I hate being alone. I really do hate it. I struggle with it. I feel like everybody hates me. The whole world has come crashing down. There's something wrong with me because I'm by myself. Whereas, actually then saying that, I can be out and about and super social, and then I'm like, I gotta go. I need my own space. But then as soon as I'm home, I'm like, oh my good Lord, give me the people back.
And I'm the absolute opposite. I absolutely thrive in alone time, but have sort of had a plague of loneliness my whole life, usually in the context of being around people. So it doesn't have to be that you are physically isolated to feel lonely. Mm-hmm. But something not about loneliness, something super exciting.
Sorry, I just had another question of feeding off of that. I know you're waiting to sip your drink, Emma Bar.
No, I wasn't even going for the drink. I was going for something else. But
I know what you're going for.
Yeah.
Can I just quickly interlude?
You are.
So when you're saying thrive off being by yourself and feel lonely more with other people, is that because, Emma, you really rely and want like good human connection? Like you don't just kind of want anything.
Yeah.
So when you say like by yourself, but that can also mean, I think you remember you saying once, it could be still your trusted social circle, but a very small one.
Yeah, but then too big. So trusted social circle is like 2 people max. But even still, COVID is wearing on me because we are 3 people in a 1-bed flat and I don't have any time in the day that I'm alone. Even when I was pooing the other day, Jess walked in.
And then Emma had a bit of bedroom time the other night, but I'm still like poking my little head
Yeah,
in.
Ingrid came and joined me. So, I mean, obviously you two are the only people in the world that I could do this with.
Yeah.
And maybe my sister or my mum. But even if all four of you were together, that would be too much possibly for more than a planned, arranged amount of time.
And when Emma says, I'm just going to have some time by myself, that is Emma very okay. Whereas I'm like, oh my good Lord, is she all right? What's happened to Emma? Oh my God, I need to go give her a hug.
Yeah.
Whereas actually you're like, please stay away for a bit.
Yeah! Oh yeah, that happened the other night.
It happens all the time. Anytime I can be by Emma's side. Even I noticed earlier we were laying on a picnic blanket on some grass because we took our little trip outside to a park, and Emma was laying one way and I was laying the other side of the blanket, and I was like, I am just too distant from my best friend right now. So snuggled right up next to her to read a book.
And then I sat up.
And turned around the other way.
Oh, great.
And slowly, like, my little foot edges out. I'm like, maybe I could just touch her with my lower leg.
Yeah. You know, boundaries. But before we even go for the drink, which I might say today is looking like the most exciting drink we've ever had.
I know.
The colour, everyone, is to die for.
It is Emma's favourite colour. It's turned purple. We didn't mean it to turn
purple. A very
purple.
deep, beautiful purple. But before I ask you about that, I want to remind you listeners that we are celebrating Jess's big birthday bonanza because next week she turns 30.
Yay!
Oh, I don't know what that was.
Emma just kind of like made a halo around
I know.
me.
It was your plethora.
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 No, we're done.
And so to enter in Jess's big birthday bonanza, where we are going to give away 3 top prizes, all you need to do is take a picture of the fluffiest things you can find, any fluffy item, post it on your social media and tag @FluffCreatives. And we winners will be in 3 categories, either the fluffiest, the funkiest, or the funniest. And Jess, being birthday girl, she makes the decision.
Yeah, and we've started to have a couple of submissions and they're great. It's so nice to receive. And also I hope you have fun doing it.
Yeah.
If you're feeling lonely, maybe you want to look around your place and find some fluffy things to submit to.
Go fluff hunting.
Yeah. Oh.
But not in a hunting way.
Yeah.
No fluffy bunnies.
What's like a searching word that begins with F? Fluff
Foraging.
finding. Fluff foraging. We're putting that on our next Insta story.
Excellent. See you there, everyone. So find your items, post them, tag us.
Yay.
But now what are we drinking?
We are drinking a cup of compassion. Or a cup of company. I think I meant to say company.
It actually says a cup of companionship on the paper.
That's what I called it, a cup of companionship. And in here, it's really simple, this one, everyone. Although now I'm like, I could have added Chambord, a raspberry liqueur. But it's just gin. We've got some nice gin, some soda water. And we've put in frozen berries that we just have from the supermarket. Just the cheap ones, like the wonky berries. So it has cranberries, raspberries, strawberries, blackberries, blueberries.
Oh.
Yeah. And I just thought they're kind of like nice feelings of love and warmth, and they make you feel nice inside, and they're quite associated with feelings of love. But I mean, this is a love for yourself.
Yeah, and by coincidence, your companion, Emma's favourite colour is purple, and it just happened to turn into that.
I know, as soon as I poured the soda water onto the berries, it just went boom. And also, remember that tinned fruit? If you listen to last week's episodes, it hasn't gone anywhere.
Yeah, we haven't used it, and none of you told us what to do.
Yeah. And we don't like to waste food, but it was about 39p per tin. And so I just put a little bit of the apricot juice in it and some fresh lemon juice, and now we're going to chuck it away.
All right, great.
Should we try it?
Yeah, let's.
There you go.
Thank you,
oh,
thank
it's
you,
so
thank you.
pretty. It's a work of art.
Yeah, I've never seen like natural
Cheers.
purples of this in food.
Oh, it smells good too. Mm.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the apricot juice isn't coming through, but
No, I mean I just
it's
got
just
lemon.
fresh.
It's just the gin's clear. The soda's
I mean, you
clear.
can't taste the berries, but they add as a coolant.
Oh yeah, they're instead of
Oh,
ice.
although I just got a bit of
If
raspberry.
you chew one though, it's nice.
So maybe what might happen is the berries might become edible. They will become. They were always edible from the start, but
As they thaw. I think is what
Yeah.
you're referring to.
oh yeah, oh nice.
Well, it's
But-
definitely light and enjoyable because it's very, very hot here today. We just spent the day in the park.
See.
And this is going down real nice.
It's nice. But what I would have done, or what I would do now, but I don't add another 25 mils, is we have some raspberry liqueur called Chambord. I would add that in as well.
Yeah, cool.
Next drink.
Yay.
Okay, so loneliness. Do you know what, Emma? The thing is, I can't stand loneliness now, but I am somebody who isolated myself for years. So I think that's why it's quite extreme now that I like people around me. And this links back to what I was saying about isolation being maybe an outcome of mental health. And so if you're feeling quite depressed, any kind of mental health disorder. And so when I had quite poor mental health throughout my teens, I isolated myself and I literally didn't want to talk to anyone, see anyone. I spent all day, every day by myself. And then I'm actually like, this is the real me. I've always been super social. My mum always said like she could not put me down. I always had to be held as a baby. So when I got better, I think now I just love having human energy around, or even like nature energy. And I think living in London in a nature-free zone, especially because I haven't had like gardens for years, like that gives me energy. I don't feel alone when I'm in nature, but maybe alone. But I just need life energy around me. So if I'm in concrete, which I have been for like 10 years, apart from when I lived in Thailand, and or whenever I've been backpacking, I backpack by myself all the time. I love it.
But are you with groups?
Sometimes with groups, but
and do you make friends usually?
No, like when I went backpacking by myself for 2 years, like a couple of big trips, and I never stayed in dormitories. I always tried to get like places like cheap huts by myself, and I really loved being my own person, going by my own timetable, and I actually found it really frustrating to make friends the first couple of years I went travelling, because I was like, well, I actually don't want to go eat dinner now. I actually don't want to get up at this time, or it was always I wanted to get up earlier. So yeah, I found I had all of those years of being super independent, whereas the reason I hate being alone is because my feelings of loneliness connects to there's something wrong with me. That's what I figured out, and that's what I'm working on.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to talk about a little bit later as well, because that's, I think, for a lot of people, that being alone is not the same as feeling lonely. So lonely usually means that there's something wrong. It could be a feeling of loneliness because you've just moved somewhere and you don't know anyone yet, and that's a more sort of normal experience of loneliness. Everyone will experience that kind of thing at some point when you start a new job, when something new happens. But feeling lonely in a more consistent way tends to mean that there's something that you need to unpick.
Yes,
or
definitely.
Discover, or something's gone wrong.
And that might be feeling lonely with people around you, maybe in a partnership of any type, in a group of friends. If maybe people are starting to move in different directions, you then might suddenly start feeling lonely. Like, for example, with my ex, for 2 years, never felt lonely. I felt like I was just wrapped in a bubble of love. But the last year of our relationship, as things started to surface or happen, or things were changing, I felt dramatically lonely.
Yeah.
And I was by her side every night. I fell asleep with her every night. But I felt so lonely in that relationship. I've reflected in the end, because she wasn't present in the way before. So, yeah, it's interesting. You can be so in love but feel so lonely.
Yeah, definitely. I think loneliness for me, I said I've sort of gone through it a lot in my life. And I remember being alone a lot as a child because my siblings are considerably older. But I really, really enjoyed that. But I think there was something about when they were there and they were still there. But I mean, I'm unpicking this in therapy at the moment with me, but so much older that they weren't spending time with me in the way that I like to spend time, or connecting with me, that I felt more lonely around people than if I could just do my own thing. And that sort of carried through definitely into my teens. I was always in groups of friends and always felt like the odd person out, maybe is the better way of explaining it. But the sort of height of feeling lonely was actually when I moved to London, which was sad because it was me achieving my dream. But for the whole first year of living in London, I was like, more people around me than ever before, because it's a massive city, but at the same time, no connection, no meaningful connection with any one person. And that didn't go away until I ended up in a relationship. So I think that's, for me, I don't need lots of connections. I just need very strong individual connections, and I need people to pay attention to me in a meaningful way. Otherwise, a deep way too. Like,
Yeah.
surface conversation
Yeah.
isn't fun for me. I need you to, I don't know, ask me my deepest, darkest things, or I
need
don't
to
feel
be
you see me.
seen.
Yeah.
Oh!
There we are.
Oh,
Yeah.
exactly. And I love, like, you may know that we love our relationship with each other. And I think we really have found within each other, our friendship, Emma and I, this thing of feeling really seen. And that whole thing about being able to sit next to somebody and not have to say anything. I've actually sometimes been like, yeah, but it's always awkward. Whereas with my best friends and with Emma, like, that is the best feeling in the world when you just are present.
Yeah. When you can just be together and not speak for hours, but it doesn't mean that there's nothing to speak about. It's just you're comfortable around each other.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. But then, on the other hand, that's being around people. And we mentioned the word isolation earlier. And Emma and I, a lot of our work through theatre and drama is working with people who are isolated. Particularly my work is around older people and people living with dementia. And it breaks my heart. And it kind of scares me for my older age. So it's all right, though. I'm going to be living with Emma and Ingrid regardless. But people who do not see anybody for weeks. They might pop to the shop and see people, but there's no one there. But what we have learned, especially when working with people with disabilities, society isn't accessible. So how are you going to get out?
No.
Society is making you isolated because, one, it's, can you get any transport to a place? Is that building, is that event, is that venue accessible? And then how are people going to treat you? Are people going to be inclusive? And I know there's a lot, living in London, we live in a wonderful city where people speak so many languages and English is not people's first language. But then we were speaking to a friend the other day who shared that when they moved to a different country, that they missed being able to express their funny side, and miss being able to express their passions. Yeah. And I suppose it keeps coming back to connection. I suppose we need deep human connection.
And I just, like, spinning off of that, I'm gonna go a little bit academic here.
Well, we love it when you do.
Thank you. I would say that the extension of this sort of society not being open and accessible for making connections is partly to do with our capitalist structure, which encourages you to put yourself first and not think of others.
Ew, I hate it.
And it's all about competitive self-interest and extreme individualism, because you are working your job to protect your immediate family. You might have moved far away from your extended family. You don't know your neighbors because you have this sort of grind culture.
Yeah.
It just means that even the elderly people who might have children, might have family who live nearby, they're busy thinking about themselves. So they're not thinking about those people anymore.
Yeah. And if you are kind of in work which is money orientated, or you're a money orientated person, then it doesn't matter to you if maybe you've got your family around you or your close friends around you and you're like, well, I'm just going to look after them.
Yeah.
But what about wider society?
Yeah.
And I don't do confrontation, but everybody, I ain't even ashamed to say it. I get about, of course, money to keep us safe and all of that, but people who just purely want to be rich or just need money.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I just want to look after society and make sure people are not alone.
And
That's
there's
horrible.
a difference. If you think about even my grandparents' generation, you wouldn't be paying nannies or nurseries to look after your child. It would be people in your community. And there's absolutely nothing wrong if you do that, because that is 100% the culture that we live in. But think about, we've now turned care into a job. Caring for people means work. So even for you, you're working with elderly and you're paid to do that.
Yeah.
But that's because no one's doing it, or very few people are doing it on an actual just desire to look out for other people.
Except in COVID-19, now we're starting to get those slips through the door. Remember a few weeks ago where it's like, hi, I'm your neighbour.
Yeah.
I can do this. Like, yes, I hope this carries on, this connecting with your neighbours, community, supporting each other. Because in the work with older people that I do, I run this cabaret in supported housing schemes. And these are people who, as I say, will not see anyone for those 2 weeks. And it is the highlight of those 2 weeks. And when they come in, they're like, we've missed you so much. I've been counting down the days. And imagine sitting in your flat for 2 weeks counting down the days until you next connect with people who say your name, just to have someone say your name.
And the other sad thing is, Jess, that this is based on funding, that it's every 2 weeks. I used to do the same job as Jess before she had it, and at that point it was once a month.
Yeah.
We had money to do this dinner cabaret once a month, and that was the highlight of these people's months.
And then, Emma, these people that we're connecting with safeguarding. So safeguarding is about protecting people and protecting vulnerable people. So you may have heard it in reference to safeguarding young people, but it also is about safeguarding any vulnerable people. So there's different structures and procedures for safeguarding older people. And supposedly, like, human contact shouldn't be a part of it. But, like, I do support a level of giving them a hug.
Yeah.
Like, it means, like, you can just feel people, like, sink into your arms and you're like, you just need a hug. And they say to me, like, I just want a hug. And I'm like, get in my arms.
I just remembered our dear friend Becca, who is living alone during COVID. She's still working, so she's seeing people because she's a journalist, but she's living alone. And I remember her saying something that absolutely stuck with us and was super heartbreaking. Saying, I just don't know when I'm next going to hug someone. And we just thought, oh, we're so lucky to be free, even albeit in a small place.
And that is so important, because I feel like there's electricity when you see someone, and there's even more electricity when you hug someone. Like, that skin to skin contact with people that you want to is just so nice.
Can we talk a little bit about mental health and isolating, though?
I was literally just to say, I can feel this, because this is about when you want that connection.
I'm just thinking, because for me, I suffer from anxiety, and when my anxiety is really bad, I'm very afraid of seeing people, and it's very much linked to me. Sometimes you might call this social anxiety, but I'm very afraid of groups, and I'm even people that I love and speaking to people that I love. And so if I weren't living with a partner, and at the moment, Jess, particularly my anxiety has been quite bad during COVID, I don't know that I would be speaking to people.
And it's like a circle then, because your anxiety might mean that you isolate yourself, but then what happens is the emotional further impacts of isolating yourself. Being isolated does cause such things such as disrupted sleep patterns, increased stress. It might mean that substance abuse might become difficult, something to manage. Altered brain functions, like literally your brain is rewired by being isolated, and also just risk-taking behaviour, it's saying here, and just kind of really difficult thoughts, and suicidal thoughts, for example. So it's kind of like a bit of a difficult circle, right? Because you don't want to see anyone, or you want to be alone because of mental health. But then it feels like it may increase the mental health even further. Which
is why we were talking before recording about tips to help yourself if you're feeling lonely. But actually, it's not always, we can't put it all on the lonely people to reach out, because odds are they're going to feel uncomfortable doing so, or there might be something going on that you don't know about. So getting in touch with the people who are by themselves, or the people who you might know have difficulty with their emotional states, is really helpful. But that doesn't necessarily mean calling them, and that doesn't mean expecting them to return your calls, because that might be too much for them, or even return your messages.
And don't give up. If you've called and messaged and they haven't, right, so there is a dear friend of mine who a couple of years ago, and this is the things that might also make people isolate themselves, even if they don't have mental health conditions, but say they have a divorce, a breakup, a tragedy happens in their life, and then there's that period where they might isolate themselves because contact's too difficult. And my friend had gone through a tragic circumstance, and I could not get hold of her. I could not get hold of her, I think, for about a year.
Wow.
And she did not leave my mind, and I just was like, I just want to know she's okay. And so I kept checking in, but eventually one day she did get back in contact, and that was because we did have a strong friendship. We hadn't really seen each other in a while, but I was like, I just have to keep checking in on her, just to let her know that I'm here.
Yeah, and that's lovely, because if you send a message like, hey, just thinking about you, hope you're well, that doesn't imply that you want me to share what I'm feeling, or you are expecting something. It just reminds that person that they are not actually alone.
Yes.
Even if that only lasts for the moment of seeing that text.
And Emma, you've given me that advice before when reaching out to people, is about send them a message which they don't have to reply to.
Yeah.
Which is really good. So sending love, but there's no obligation to reply.
Yeah, exactly.
But in terms of, because we did talk about isolation and the severity of that, it does say here about getting help. This is about getting help through a mental health professional.
Yes.
So I think that is the answer. But I know NHS is a long wait. I was referred for counselling and hasn't come through yet, but we're also in COVID.
There are a few charities,
that are,
it's really worth investigating.
There's call lines, and there's also call lines for specific minority groups, for example.
Yes.
So, for example, if you're a queer person who is feeling particularly isolated or lonely, there are specific groups. So just a Google search, my darlings, and check that out.
Yeah.
So, you know the old place Harvard? And do you know what's really bad? Right, Emma, if I say to you Harvard, what do you picture or think?
Well, I've actually been to the campus of Harvard.
Stop it!
Because it's Boston, which isn't too far, and I went for my senior grad trip. And while we were there, our teacher said to us, pay attention, everyone, because this is the closest to Harvard you're ever going to get, which I just feel like is quite demoralising for quite a really intelligent graduating class.
I mean, Emma is so bright and intelligent. Like, living with her intensifies it a little bit. Like, I think I'm just scatty. Emma just gives me these looks several times a day, like, really?
We're learning a lot about each other.
The thing is, I feel like I've got less intelligent as I've got older. Maybe I haven't studied in a while. I don't know.
Think intelligent. You're not talking about intelligence.
No,
You're a very intelligent person.
I think I've gone through a lot over the past year, and my mind is still like.
Yeah, I think the main thing that you're referring to is that you tend to act before you think of consequences, and I don't mean in terms of like she'll be in trouble consequences. I just mean she does things physically and things fall over and she didn't think it through, even though it does seem it was quite obvious.
What's funny though is in house shares over the past few years, I have never been the clumsy one or the one that breaks it. I'm actually a bit of the house like whip. And something has happened in the past year. Well, I know what's happened. My mind has just taken a bit of a toll from a traumatic breakup. And I think it's just not catching up. But also, I think I've learned. So, I'm just being a bit clumsy around Emma and Ingrid. But I'm going with, and hear me out here, listeners. Do you agree? They're new appliances, or it's a new structure of the home. Or I haven't, for example, been in a car for a while, so if I shut the... I got in trouble.
The main thing, Jess, is not that they're new. It's just that, which, you know, fair enough, they're new. But you don't stop to contemplate, this is different from what I'm used to. You just continue to act.
Like, I put so many chickpeas in the blender the other day and a splash of water and hoped they would blend.
Which is not a new appliance.
Jesus. So yeah, Harvard. So when I think of
she's cute.
I'm cute. I'm adorable.
Yeah.
And yeah, Harvard. I think of Legally Blonde.
Yes. Oh yeah, of course. What, like it's hard?
Yeah. Oh, we love a freaking quote.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, there's a fan. So Harvard, good old Harvard, top university in the US of A. This is now moving into social media. So we are obviously living in a time where the phone is an extension of our arm. I heard that phrase the other day. And so we are maybe addicted without realising we are, or we know we're addicted.
Are. I mean,
we're all
we
addicted.
Definitely are.
Oh, yeah. I just, after the breakup, I did not go on social media for Are you looking at my tits again? I feel like you're constantly looking at my tits.
It's the fluff. It's just a distracting you, but it's not. I mean, your tits are much lower than that. Not to say that her tits are low, just to say that the fluff necklace is like quite up at your neck.
Ever since I just keep catching her, take a glance.
Scusi.
Non c'è problema. I will take any looks I can get right now. So Harvard.
Yeah.
Do you know what? We haven't drunk in a few days. Maybe the gin's gone to our
head. Hard.
So Harvard, social media. So good on you if you have kind of boundaries around your social media use. But of course, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, anything. The ones that I haven't heard of and are new. The ones which, just exist that I don't know about. TikTok, I'm not going to go into that world because I've got enough going on with Insta. But it makes you feel more lonely. Yeah. And I have noticed this over the past year, like moving into my own space, in a house share, but like basically sleeping by myself. the evidence is all there that the more I look on social media, the lonelier I often feel. Like, good connections, but too much of it is just draining your brain.
Because I guess it's, well, you might say, but my hypothesis is that you are inundated with social lives that you're not part of, and it's so impersonal.
Yeah.
But it also encourages you to feel like you've connected with someone, or you know something about someone, so you're less likely to message them or to call them because you've seen what's happening in their life.
And as you say, Emma, it's about that true connection, that genuine feeling. So even though it's nice to maybe message someone, and of course I'm not doubting this, I'm just thinking it through, but does it have the same impact as, I don't know, that deep connection that you're after, or that conversation face to face?
Well, I would say messaging does, because I think it's a privilege to say it has to be face to face when most of my strongest relationships are across the pond.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's an old-fashioned term. Or in Canada.
So cute.
But I think, whereas sometimes when I'm in a low point, I'm seeing those friends together having a good time. Yeah. And so I know what's happening, so I'm not going to call them and be like, hey, what are you up to? Tell me about your week, because I feel like I've seen it, but at the same time, I'm not getting any contact from them. Yeah.
And I generally do get company from people I don't even know that well. If we just kind of notice something, or we just send a little message, that does make me feel like a little hug, which is really nice.
Yeah.
But Harvard did a study, and they were working with 143 undergraduates. And remember Snapchat? Who has Snapchat still? Do we still use that?
I still have it, but I haven't used it since I moved to the UK, I think.
Oh my gosh, this is so interesting.
Facebook was invented at Harvard, obviously.
Of course. Oh, such a film.
Just in case you don't know this, everyone, it was originally invented to rate women.
Yes, it was, wasn't it?
Some dirty...
What's the film?
Social Network.
Social Network with Justin Timberlake.
See.
Right, Harvard. Have you been waiting for this report?
Yeah.
I mean, the content around it has been fabulous, if we do say so ourselves. So researchers worked with 143 undergraduates, and they limited their use of social media such as Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat to 30 minutes a day for 3 weeks. This showed... and then there was a control group that made no changes. And it showed that the students who limited to 30 minutes a day for 3 weeks had significant decreases in anxiety and fear of missing out.
That's what I said.
And they said, I ended up feeling much happier. I focused on other things and interests as opposed to what everyone else is up to. So it just says here, kind of the outcomes of this is to be mindful of how you use social media and the role it plays in your life. It says, fine to do a quick check-in and see what other people are doing and how they're doing. And to keep track of social events to attend, which I mean, being a creative as well, like
it's really important.
We need social media. We literally, I've never been on Instagram so much because we're using it to, help grow Fluff, for example.
Yeah, or everything's virtual at the moment. So social media is a really key way of sharing words and facts.
But it says about being careful because it is highly comparative. And social media has a show-off character that can't help but make us compare our lives with others. Oh my gosh, it's saying, so Facebook is about show-off, whereas now I disagree. I think Facebook is just news articles or, I don't know, events maybe.
Yeah, but I feel like on any social media platform, you're not showing your true self. I'm not going to post necessarily about... Some people do, actually, but I'm not going to post about feeling depressed. I'm only going to post when I'm feeling good,
exactly, yeah. And then, which actually is ridiculous because I have so many people, because I take it upon myself also to spread joy, and I have so many people, big love to anyone listening to this, but I had people saying it looks like you're doing amazingly during quarantine, and I was like, I've just come out of a curled up ball on the floor.
Yeah, I mean, we absolutely love doing Fluff, and this is us being genuinely happy to be together, but there have been weeks where we don't chat. Apart from when we're doing this. Yeah. And those are the highlights. We do this because this is some of our happiest time of the week.
It is. We love it. We love it to bits. And we've also... But we communicated about that, didn't we, Emma, when we were like...
our balance was off.
It was so off.
Part of that was even social media related. It was like, do you know what? I think we're spending all too much time on screens.
Yeah. Exactly. And we
Yeah.
just have so much fun together without it.
Yeah.
But it was saying how Instagram, yes, is the creative expression. So that is why people do turn to that more. It says here Twitter can be devastating because there's lots of trolls.
Yeah, it's a scary one.
But it is more conversational and allows for that. It also says about dating apps here. But how that can obviously leave us reeling from too many swipe left rejections. So he's saying pick your social media that helps you build authentic social connections and pulls you into a welcoming community.
Yeah, or think about how you utilize it. Are you using it just to consume other people's posts, or are you using it to genuinely create meaningful connections? Like we said in the dating episode about dating apps, or like, is it because... Are you in a place where you do need that technology in order to make connections, or is it something that it's actually not going well for you at the moment?
In which case, that brings us to being strong in your own company. Like, it's so important, and this is what I am trying to achieve, and I'm getting there for sure, is to be by myself and not feel lonely. Because it is so easy to quickly log on to something and get, like, a fix.
Yeah.
And I'm using the word fix because it is like dopamine, isn't it?
Oh, totally, yeah.
Yeah, it's like a happy hormone that comes to you. Like whenever you get a text message, you get literally a release of dopamine, which is like...
Yeah, and I do find it quite scary, Jess, as your friend.
Oh, good Lord.
How much your mood depends on the messages you've received in the day.
Do you...
And it's something that I know you're aware of and you're working on, but it is a bit... It's sometimes quite, she's really happy today, but she's only really happy today because a certain person has messaged her, as opposed to every other day where she's actually been a bit down this week.
Yeah. So, this is why... So, I'm great that Emma can tell me that and Ingrid can highlight that, and I do know it myself. Oh, excuse us. Not feeling lonely anymore. Dopamine release.
It's an email about your birthday, so...
Oh my gosh, my big birthday bonanza.
I can't tell you what it is, but it just brought a smile to my face.
Oh my gosh, I don't even know what's happening.
You're not expecting this.
Oh my god, my palms are sweating.
Right.
I love you so much.
But it's not huge because it's obviously COVID, but it's something that I think you'll be surprised by.
Oh my gosh, okay. Oh my god, human connections. Yes, but I am aware of this and I desperately want to improve it. Like I do. And the thing is, the way I feel good about it is because I know I used to be able to be by myself.
Yeah.
But then I've come out of a very dependent relationship.
Yeah.
And I think I've lost a lot of confidence. So I get my confidence through human affirmation, maybe more than I should. I should get my confidence through self-affirmation.
Yeah, of course. And that's something that I think everyone can aspire to. But I also think it's part of your nature. I have a thing here about introverts versus extroverts. And Jess, you are extremely, very much an extroverted person. So it does make sense that your experience of the world does depend a little bit on other people. It's just that I think it's better for you to be aware of when it's depending on other people.
Can you tell us, Emma Bar? Because I always say, yeah, I'm an extrovert, but I'm actually an introvert.
Which I think is totally 100% untrue. I'm someone because I work in theatre, I'm very loud, I interrupt people, I talk over them, I take up a lot of space.
I love it when
room.
I'm just talking over you now, but it's so fun when we're chatting and you can just see Emma just got something to say and she's like doing this like little jolt of her mouth.
I'm working so hard. I mean, you've witnessed it now. You've been with my family. You cannot make a point unless you interrupt someone.
Just talk loud.
Yeah, I mean, literally, that's my dad's method of living through life. Just talk louder. And
or
then
Emma stands on the table.
Yeah, or I stand in the chair. Okay, but I'm actually, in spite of all this, an introverted person, and Jess is an extroverted person, and I'm going to tell you why. So, an introvert prefers spending time in solitude, and an extrovert have large social networks. An introvert avoids being center of attention. An extrovert enjoys being the center of attention.
No, I do not love it. Give me attention.
The other day, the last week, Ingrid had this suggestion where she was like, we should start introducing into our quarantine all about me days. So like a day that'll be all about Jess, and then a day that'll be all about Ingrid, and a day that'll be all about Emma, and then you get to decide what's happening. And I immediately was like, great, I can't wait to do your days, but it sent me into this huge panic of I just don't want to be the center of attention for the day.
Yeah, bless her.
And it's the same, if you were going to surprise me for my birthday, don't.
Well, we have a story about that. We'll tell that after.
Yeah. Introverts think before they speak. Now, that's something I'm working on because I don't do that as much. But extroverts tend to think out loud. But I do think a lot before I'm seeing someone about what I'm going to speak about.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Introverts value close one-to-one relationships, and extroverts love being in groups. Introverts need time alone to recharge and reflect, and extroverts gain energy from being around other people, which is the main bit that I was referring to. So it does make sense that connection from others makes you feel different ways.
Yeah.
And helps you gain energy.
Yeah, and I just love, like, exchanging of happiness. I'm like, I'm going to make you happy, you're going to make me happy, we're all going to have a big giggle.
Yeah. Introverts prefer working in quiet, independent environments, and extroverts thrive in team-oriented, open work settings, which is really funny while we're working on Fluff. There's a lot of things where I just cannot give over to Jess because I just need to do it all by myself with all the control.
So Emma does do all the edits for Fluff, and that initially started when I didn't have any software and Emma already had it. And then when I got the software and I was like, so Emma, like, we can just do an edit each, and Emma's just like, I really enjoy it.
I can't share.
And I was like, no worries, I'll just do the social media content.
Yeah. Introverts deeply focus and think about specific interests, and extroverts tend to make quick decisions, like putting lots of chickpeas in a blender. Introverts, this is what I don't think I am, can be seen as reserved. Although I think if you meet me in a party with a lot of people and I don't know anyone there, I'm very quiet.
Yeah, I'd say also in...
Whereas this is you, extroverts, outgoing, enthusiastic, and positive.
Just... I'm sorry, they ordered an entertainer for the party and I'm here to provide.
Whereas if I went to a party with you, people might think that I'm extrovert because I'm alongside you and you're like helping me with my energy.
Yeah.
But if I was in a party by myself of people I don't know, I will be quiet unless someone asks me a direct question.
And I suppose, do you check in before you go to an event, which is like, but will I be able to talk to somebody like in a interesting way?
It's something we've had to introduce into our relationship because there's been lots of occasions where we've gone to like work events. Like, I'm very good at meeting people, but sometimes if I feel like there's certain people who aren't going to include me in their group, which sometimes happens, and you get a sense that that's a group that doesn't actually want to talk to me about anything outside of what they already have in common, then I get a lot of panic about going to those events.
Yeah, and I suppose that might come from, as we said, we're going into kind of history here as well and our own experiences. So Emma, like for example, when Emma moved to the UK, you were very stereotyped. You were like, can somebody please start a conversation without mentioning a freaking moose?
Oh my God. It took like a year before someone actually asked me anything about my life and had a deep conversation with me because they were just so obsessed with snow and moose and bear.
Yeah, boring, not what you want to be talking about.
And then what was the problem with that is that they would ask those questions, find out the answers, because I'm more than willing to talk to you, and sure, maybe that's a great icebreaker, but then go back to talking about really culturally specific things that I can't engage with.
Yeah, which is really tough.
Yeah.
That's so tough, Emma.
Yeah, well, if you're ever having a dinner party or a party in your house, just think about the people who maybe don't know anyone and how you can make it accessible for them. Even things like... I mean, this is us as drama practitioners, but having some sort of icebreaker, everyone has to say something, making sure as a host that you introduce that new person to all the new people that come into the room, and then navigating through conversation to make sure that, for example, if you all work together and there's one partner there, don't talk about work the whole time.
Yeah. And I suppose it might be like, you're like, oh, you know what, it's my Saturday night though, I just want to like talk with my friends, or I just want to talk to this person where it's easier to talk to, you think.
Yeah.
But why not connect with somebody? Like, even if you don't want to give all of your evening, if there is a quieter person or somebody who isn't as involved in the group, give them your time as well. Because that is just going to make them feel so good. And that's what I mean. It's about not being completely selfish.
Yeah. Shout out actually to my brother-in-law, Evan.
Yay!
At any given party, he will be found with the person that doesn't know anyone or is most separate from the group. He is the best at finding the person who doesn't feel comfortable there, and then he will stay by them all night long.
That's so
He's
lovely.
such a good person for that.
And I was going to say that's really generous, and I don't mean that in... But I know it does feel like... Maybe it doesn't for Evan. Maybe that is where Evan thrives. But maybe some people feel a sense of duty. But I'd say the thing is, when you make a connection with somebody... And this is why I disappear at parties quite a lot. Because when you make that connection with somebody new... I do get excited by it. I'm like, I've just met you and we've just had the wicked conversation. And I love it. Whereas... Yeah, that's it.
But this could say we've had this happen, for example, in a club.
Yes.
Where we've met someone new, and I'm great for the first 5 minutes of casual chat, but then Jess thinks they're our new best friends and wants to spend the whole night with them, and I'm like, I actually came to this club to dance with you, Jess.
Yeah. I know, it is a thing. And sometimes I do...
It's not a problem, it's just something that we navigate. So some nights we go with the new friends, and some nights is... us night.
But it was so good. I remember, I think the conversation around introverts and extroverts, that was one of the best conversations that we ever had. Like, the first time we ever spoke about it.
I don't remember the first time we spoke about it.
It was when I got my book about empaths.
Oh, yes.
I was being empaths, and it's speaking about being introverts, extroverts. And it was actually a really helpful conversation to have, and I encourage you to have it with everyone. Because I've been best friends with Emma for years, but I didn't know about you feeling lonely or a bit more anxious in big groups. And I immediately said to you, I was like, fuck, I just swan off at a party. I chat with someone. Yeah. And then I was like, oh my God, I am not leaving my girl's side. So it was such a helpful conversation to have. And then I felt like, I just was like, oh, okay, I understand Emma a lot more. And don't get me wrong, I know I've swanned off to other people, but my heart is with Emma, so I ain't ditching her.
That's not to say that I feel like I'm being really needy and you need to stay with me. It's just it's an important thing. If you are friends with someone who is more introverted, just check in with them.
Yeah.
And if they're like, no, I'm cool, then you can go and do what you like. But if you can sense, and sometimes I feel like I give quite clear signals, but I'm not very confident in saying, I hate this. So, check in with them.
Yeah,
see how
definitely.
It's going.
And that's just, it's really nice when you can support each other in that way. I really like it. And similarly, if you are an extrovert, you may experience exhaustion, which is that point where then I find there's just like a point where I'm suddenly like, no, it's like a really dramatic, I'm done.
Yeah.
Get me out of here.
Yeah.
I want to be home. I want to be eating snacks in bed. I want to be... I want to be watching comedy in bed and just by myself, and that is my recharge. But I just need that. I just need to recharge for a few hours.
Yeah.
But there is a point where maybe extroverts are exhausted, and if you are known, I'm going to say this: if you are known as the extrovert, sometimes there is an expectation.
Yeah, you give everything you've got when you're around a group of people. Like, sometimes I'm like, we were just chill, and then we walked in and Jess is like, bah, 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 firing in all cylinders, and I'm like, you didn't need to change your energy because we're going to be with these people for the next 8 hours. But she's giving it all out, and oh my lovely, and it's incredible to witness.
I mean, it's real. Like, I am genuinely so excited. Like, I just get such a buzz. Like, I'm so excited to see people.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to catch up. Like, it's genuine. But when it got me into a sticky situation last year, when I then didn't have an energy to give because I had a breakup and I was so brokenhearted, and because I teach groups at a certain level of energy, which is impossible to achieve if you're feeling down. So I was going into sessions and I was like, hi, how's everyone doing? And I was just like, I can't bring it. I've set a standard that I cannot achieve. And I feel lots of extroverts may feel that. If you feel that everyone knows you as the bubbly one, if you cannot bring the bubbles, then you know what our dear friend Rita says.
Oh, yeah.
Our dear friend Riri. This was the best. This was the wisest thing.
This is the most incredible advice I think either of us have ever received.
Yeah, absolutely. Wisdom. Here we go. Riri said, if you haven't got any sparkles to give, then you need to kind of take yourself away and recharge. Because what was her line? It was like, I haven't got any sparkles to give, so I'm going to take myself away and give myself some sparkles until I can...
Sprinkles.
Sprinkles! Oh, my word, sprinkles.
She's like, if I'm feeling good, I can sprinkle energy, sprinkle goodness on my friends. If I don't have enough sprinkles... oh, God. If I don't have enough sprinkles to share with you without having any for myself, I need to take myself away and keep my sprinkles. Also because I don't want to sprinkle negatively on you. I don't want to shit sprinkle on you.
Exactly. That was what the wise Riri said. So think about that one, everyone. I think it's such... We refer to it now all the time. We're like, haven't got any sprinkles to give.
I even texted my sister. I was like, yeah, I just didn't want to shit sprinkle on you. And she was like, what are shit sprinkles?
Yeah. So use that, everyone. It's a great way of just saying to someone, like, if you're feeling a bit down or you haven't got the capacity to chat right now, just say, I haven't got any sprinkles to give. I just need to keep them for myself.
Yeah.
Or find them again for myself.
Yeah.
And then when I'm ready, I'll be back to give you some sprinkles.
So important.
It's so good.
Before we go into our tips, I just also want to say a shout out. We kind of started to address it when we talked about society and capitalism, but there is proven research and ideas that go into loneliness as associated with being in a minority group. Obviously, in my experience, in our experience, that is to do with queer loneliness. Yeah. But I'm certain that exists in other capacities. But if you are someone who's around people and you are noticeably different, or you feel noticeably different, because it could happen, queer loneliness can happen even if you're not out, or even aware that you're not out. It's just a feeling of, I don't belong here, no one understands. Yeah. Then you're sort of on an uphill battle. It's a different type of loneliness, and that's something that can really stick with you. Yeah. So again, it's something to consider if you have a friend who identifies differently from you in any sort of capacity, thinking, and you know that they don't have other people of their community around them. How can you support them to either find other people or just understand that there's a difference there and speak to them about it? Yeah, because think of how much personality you have as a person. Yeah. That person does as well. But if they're not quite fitting into this group, or they haven't been introduced or welcomed, and it's hard to welcome yourself into a group. And then think about that. If you're someone who is a minority and you're feeling lonely, but you can't put words to it, and you think it's... Basically, I'm saying there's nothing wrong with you. Yeah. It's just that you might be in a group that doesn't have the same cultural life experience as you. And then that's just about finding other people maybe who do, or ways to accept that you're different from the others. And, again, just don't leave those situations feeling bad on yourself. A couple of examples, one personal, one that I read about this week. One was it 2 years ago? I was at a big group dinner and I was the only queer person there, and I cried over my meal because it felt like no one wanted to talk to me, or no one got me. I was like, there's no connection here. But then we're going to mention again 2 episodes in a row, The Black Flamingo by Dean Atta. There's this brilliant chapter where Dean says about when he went to university and everyone was white on his course except him. I believe it's biographical. It feels biographical. I think it is, but we can, confirm with us, Dean. Is it your biography? Yeah. And Dean was saying basically that all the white people and then the 2 non-white people, himself included, were kind of steered towards each other in a way. And they said to each other, we can't be the stereotype. We don't want to be the only non-white people who are making friends and becoming friends. But they were like, but we do get on. But it's the idea that segregation by any minority is so ridiculous. Yeah. I think even outside of the obvious answer in my life, which is having lesbian friends, is amazing. But when I first moved to the UK, all the people who I connected with and became friends with were international students. Right. We had very different cultures, different races, but we were together in being not British. Yeah. And that was our sort of common ground. And that what meant that there was a lot of closeness around that, because there was a lot of, at least we could compare of, oh my God, did you learn this thing that they do? It's so crazy. And also, I suppose Britain does put itself on a bit of a pedestal. So you're trying to
it might feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're then like trying to fit in, or you're made to feel like you have to fit in with Britain's mould, rather than everyone just being like, "Oi!"
I mean, British history is very much not to assimilate with other cultures, but is to take over other cultures.
Yeah.
So there's not a even embedded cultural understanding of how to accept difference. Yeah. Although there's a lot of amazing, diverse people that live here and call themselves British now, I would say it's still, there's a long way to go before that is.
Exactly. Which is why living in a big city, for example, like London, is amazing, because the diversity is, like, when I leave, say, for example, if I go back to Kent, which is where I'm from, but there are certain parts of Kent where I walk in and I'm like, I just don't feel comfortable here, because it is just no diversity whatsoever. And I'm like, how?
Diversity in any sense.
Yeah, in any sense. And I'm just like, how? I mean, like, thriving off cross-culturalism, right? It's just so nice.
Yeah, great.
So, Emma and I, just to close off today, our lovely podcast listeners, are some of our top tips for loneliness, or supporting when you're feeling lonely and it's not feeling good.
And we've written our tips on our own and from our own perspectives of loneliness, which is slightly different, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely. Because mine is coming from not liking being physically alone and feeling really down when I'm physically alone. So my top tips for this, and this is what I've done over the past year since I've had a breakup and just lived in my own room in a house share. I just work to create energy around me, energy of life. So when I don't have a physical human presence, I have brought into the room plants. Like, my lovely little bedroom in my house share is full of plants, because it gives off energy. It feels like it's a living thing in my room. I'm looking for light energy, so beautiful candles. My room is just filled with candles. All cheap stuff, a little bit from Wilkinson's, a little bit of Poundlands every now and then, but just filling things with flames. So I've got flames around me. Cool. Blow them out before you go to sleep. Anything that is basically the senses. So I have incense sticks. I have like sprays, like essential oil sprays and all of this. So basically, I just want my room to be full of living sensory energy, so I don't feel like I'm just sitting in a chasm.
Cool.
And that also comes with, I have fluffy things. So I have a fleecy blanket, I have fluffy pillows, and I cocoon them around me when I sleep. I'm just like, just wrap me in your hug. And I always go for hot showers, hot baths, anything that just feels like a hug. When we went outside to the park earlier, Emma, I was just like, I could smell nature for the first time. The sun was so warm on my skin, and I felt so alive, and I felt really safe. And I was like, that's what it is. I just want things to give me a hug. And actually, even though my go-to and the easy thing for many of us to go to is to watch something on Netflix, for example, I have noticed that it doesn't always make me feel good. I never watch anything now. Since I've been by myself, I haven't watched any kind of crime or tragic stories. I can't do that without other people around me. So I just have my go-to comedies, such as Taskmaster. I watch it every night. It makes me happy. If you haven't seen it, Greg Davies.
So good.
UK
so
TV
funny.
play. I'm not sure if that's legal though. And anything that's uplifting, like things that lift your mood if you're going to watch it. I'd say I'm trying to work on things that aren't about other people, but then I do enjoy creating things for other people. So if I know somebody's birthday's coming up, when I grew up, I used to love making birthday cards for people, but then I kind of got out of that a bit. So then I'm like, I'm just gonna like draw some art or do things and make birthday cards. So for me, it's still got a bit of purpose. But then I suppose I'm working on now just doing things, and I've quarantine. I now just sit and read.
Yeah, it's good. And it's been because we are now at a point where Ingrid and I, because we've lived the two of us for so long, we're like, let's just go hang out by ourselves. But I feel like it's taken us 2 months of quarantine to feel like we can leave Jess alone, and not by Jess's fault, but just sort of both of us having been through this year with Jess out of just sort of genuine concern of leaving you alone in a room. So, but thank you for allowing us also to take space.
Yay! And I'm glad that you can feel that I can do that. Because now I am just like, no worries, team. I got bits to be doing.
Yeah, definitely. Is that your list?
That's my list done. Emma, please tell us.
So my tips for loneliness come from addressing loneliness as a feeling which may or may not be related to being alone. Because I said, I quite enjoy time alone. And in multiple times in my life, both in Toronto and in Swindon, I've lived alone by choice in a 1-bedroom apartment.
Right.
And I quite like that because then everything is under my control. And then, finding a partner who fits into that is a bit of a different kind of relationship. And I know that it's good with Ingrid because she doesn't drive me crazy. But I think first and foremost, if you're experiencing loneliness, whether it's around people or in relation to a trauma, if you're in a healthy enough mental state where you can start to explore, or you're supported in a supported mental state, either with friends or with counseling and in therapy, address where your feelings of loneliness might be coming from is kind of step one before you can get over it. So I'm actually in the process of dealing with that at the moment, and it's taken me 28 years to get here, but it is quite helpful just to understand where that's starting to come from so that I can start to realize A, that some of it's not true, and B, that I've decided my loneliness.
Right.
So I have control about not feeling lonely. Doesn't mean that I don't feel it, but it means that in a healthy state, I can start to think about that a bit more.
So it shows that it's also an emotional state that can be changed.
Yes.
You're not going to be a lonely person forever.
Yeah, you have to do the work, but it can change. Definitely. But then on the other side, invest in yourself, I guess, but invest in your interests. Figure out what your interests are. For me, sewing, knitting, making things, not for other people, but for myself or just for the purpose of making, is lovely. Makes me just feel calm and makes me feel like a sense of accomplishing something, maybe not purpose, but just something to do, and passes time very quickly. Find places and activities that help you feel calm is really important, because I think if I'm feeling lonely, I can work myself into a really anxious state, and I just need something that just makes me relax.
Yes.
So that might be lying in a park, or that could be having a bath, or it could be maybe walks help you feel more connected with your experience. I think you said something about nature being really important, and I feel like when I'm feeling particularly lonely, it's not that I imagine myself with other people, but I imagine myself at home in a really specific, very rural place by a lake.
Yeah.
And then I don't feel so lonely.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
Because even the sound of birds is just like, oh, lovely.
Yeah, there's more than me. I think loneliness can be a very sort of internal feeling. It can make you go, ugh, but you want to sort of get it out of you.
Yeah.
Another way of doing this is journaling. I think journaling is really cool. Mm-hmm. If I'm feeling lonely, I can at least speak to my own voice in a book.
Right, yeah.
And write it down. Actually, I speak to myself a lot when I'm alone. Mm-hmm. And
like out loud?
Yeah, definitely. And that doesn't mean I'm not feeling lonely at that point, but I'm also feeling like I have myself as company.
Yeah.
Meditation and exploring ways of feeling comfort with being alone in your own mind is really important, so that I don't need to be sewing to feel not lonely.
Yes.
I can just do it in my own brain. So if I'm in a situation where I can't access those things, again, that might come through therapy or through support, but there's some amazing apps that teach meditation. I'm doing a series on Headspace right now, which is about self-esteem, and it's fantastic.
And can I just say, Emma, about that being comfortable in your own head, in your own space, like if anybody's listening to this and is being like, yeah, I wish I could do that. Also, don't be hard on yourself for being aware of it. Because think of people who might be feeling anxious or feeling lonely, but haven't yet put that down to
you're
already thinking about how you can support yourself.
And I would
that's
say
a big step.
I'm absolutely rubbish at meditation, and the best thing about the self-esteem version, the course that I'm on at the moment, is that the guy who leads the meditation regularly is reminding you, don't be upset at yourself for being mad at this, don't use this as another reason to, because
you're still
self-deprecate.
You're
practicing something, and it's not something you'll be good at away.
And meditation you have to practice.
Oh my gosh, it's really difficult. But actually, after having done it sort of consistently for a while, I am starting to feel, it's not that it's any easier, but I'm less anxious about it. which is good.
Yeah, and watching you, Emma, do your meditations, or if I just know you are doing one, like, it seems to be so rewarding for you.
Yeah, it's very good. This is for if you need to see people and you're not feeling like it. And I've done this. Practice methods of starting conversations and start with one-to-one instead of groups. So if you are ready to reach out, or if you have to go to a group event, find someone who you can meet right before to go for a coffee maybe, and then have a connection, and then you can go to that thing together.
So something, this phrase popped to mind, but to ease the blow, to ease that kind of shock of just walking into a space and being like, that if you can just find a way to feel calm before you go in.
And then the last thing, which I know is very difficult, but is if and when you feel comfortable, tell one person that you're feeling lonely and ask them to help you make plans to address it together. Because then suddenly you're solving a problem with another person. You're already addressing the loneliness, but someone else knows that you're feeling that way. And you just have to say it once and they'll continue to check in on you if it's a good person.
And I suppose for that person as well, if somebody approaches you and says they're lonely, even if you know, oh, but you see friends all the time. Oh, but you're really bubbly or whatever. Like if somebody approaches you and says, I'm feeling lonely, I suppose... Yeah, don't say, oh, but you're busy all the time.
Yeah,
like there's other
go
reasons.
Back in there.
Yeah, so as we've said, there's many reasons why you can feel lonely. So great if you can team up on that. And who knows, you might say it to somebody and they say, yeah, I am too. And then you can support each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think, Emma, concluding this episode is that... Oh! Woo! A big one!
All right.
Salute. There's a lot of pollen today.
It's so much pollen today.
Yeah, bless. As we were driving to the park, I saw all the pollen outside the window. I was like
clouds
oh, my poor girl.
Yeah.
But yes, so loneliness, we've touched upon, can present itself whether surrounded by people and whether not. I hope it was helpful to you podcast listeners to hear from mine and Emma's different experiences of loneliness and how that can be lonely with people and without. And just again, letting you know that we're here. So if you are experiencing any loneliness or isolation, you can message us.
Please.
Yeah. And not to go all formal now, but just so you know where you can message us is at Fluff Creatives on Instagram and Twitter and fluffinquiries@gmail.com. If you know us personally, whack us a little WhatsApp as well.
Yeah. And don't forget to do your fluff foraging in the meantime for Jess's big birthday bonanza, because then you can celebrate a birthday with us and help Jess feel less lonely.
I know, but as I said, I hope it's fun and creative as well.
Yeah.
I'm not submitting loads myself, but I'm gonna do the task though myself. I can't stop looking out for fluffy things.
Oh yeah, of course. We're giving you examples. Oh, my submissions aren't submissions. They're just examples.
Oh, right. For sure.
I think it would be really inappropriate if I won.
And the winner is...
in all 3 categories.
Amazing. Well, my stomach's feeling a bit lonely now, so I'm going to go and roast some vegetables for dinner.
Yummy! Have a lovely day, everyone.
Take care.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to rate and subscribe.
We're excited to welcome you into our Fluff family and bring you some gorgeous sparkles every Friday.
We're going in.